Welcome to Call to Healing. We are two mental health practitioners on different parts of our professional journeys come together to have conversations our training left out. From cultural identity to white supremacy in our field, we're showing up despite it to spite it. Hello. Hi, Blanca. How are you?
Hi, Katia. I'm hanging in there. How are you?
I am alive, which is something to be said these days. Welcome, everyone, to Call to Healing. I'm Kasara Diet, a licensed clinical psychologist in Massachusetts.
And I'm Blanca, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in Nevada.
Yes, and we acknowledge that we are settlers on Turtle Island, and we pay respect to our elders, both past and present, who have stewarded this land for generations. If you are joining us for what is our 6th episode, yeah, last episode we spent time talking about the thing called self-care. Go check it out. We have many feelings about it. And this episode, we are talking about how to think like a business person. And this was not a planned topic. This happened as a result of a text conversation that Blanca and I were having. So, Blanca, can you talk about what was going on?
Yeah. So a little bit of history is I opened my private practice in February 2021 with a ton of help from Kasara in terms of the paperwork I needed, realizing it was possible to do to begin with, and a lot of course, love and encouragement. And so Kasara is frequently the person I turn to when I have concerns or questions or thoughts or just vents about being a business owner. And as the political context in the United States continues its, what do we want to call it? Whatever the fuck.
Dystopian
Nightmare, steep decline into fascism, whatever the fuck. Again, really. I've been thinking more and more about leaving. And that includes shifting my practice to telehealth. However, that's not happening anytime soon, but just having that thought alone made me really look at like my days and whether my clients are online and telehealth and how much, it's also tax season. So the amount of money I spent on rent last year and really starting to wonder, could these funds be used better? And by used better, I mean, could they be in my pocket? So yeah. So with all that, I started this. I don't have as many mixed feelings as I do now, but when I first started thinking about it, I did have a lot of really mixed feelings about it. And so as we were talking about those feelings, it occurred to Kasara and I that it might be a beneficial podcast episode because I'm sure I'm not the only one. We know, actually, I'm not the only one that has mixed feelings on these kinds of things. So that's kind of what brought us to this topic.
Yeah. And can you talk about the mixed feelings you were having?
Yeah. So I think, I think as mental health practitioners and from my perspective as a therapist, there's almost like an indoctrination that happens. First, I don't know if I'm sure this is part of the indoctrination, but there's the dream of like, where will my office be located and what a color am I going to paint it and what kind of couch and I'm going to have fidget toys for this and I'm going to have this for that and I'm going to have water and I'm going to have coffee and I'm just going to have this little haven and like the fantasy of being when you're in school of what your therapy office is going to look like. So that was part of the mixed feelings of this like almost preemptive grief of the loss of finally having the office that I wanted to have so badly as a student. I finally got a window this year. My office up until the last few years, up until October of last year, have been without windows. So I had to become a little bit of a lighting expert. I finally have a window. I finally have plants. And so there's like a little bit of grief in letting that go. The other part of it that is mixed too is this fear that I'm going to lose clients over this, which I might, right? I might. And then so there's feelings of kind of grief wrapped around that, anxiety wrapped around that. If how many clients can I stand to lose? That will the benefit of not having rent, will it make up for that? Then there's the other part that this might be wrapped up a little bit in the trauma of becoming a therapist. Excuse me, let me rephrase that. This might be wrapped up in how becoming a therapist is a trauma response. Because I just think about the clients that I know love coming in person and that I think would be totally fine switching to online, but my people pleaser part is very much like, but no, Fulana, that's not a real name. That's Jane Doe in Spanish, Fulanita. Fulana loves coming to the office, so how can I take that from her? And that's wrapped up in there as well. So I think those are the mixed feelings.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because as I'm hearing you talk about it, I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely had that fantasy, right? And that my business name, Cup of Tea Counseling, my original business name, it's now coaching and consulting, and was formed not only around my love of tea and the metaphor um,
Mm-hmm.
that it symbolized for me when it comes to conflict and the British and all that. Anyway,
Right.
but also the vision that I had that I would share tea with my clients. And there was the other layer of that being like, like spilling the tea, like, we went
Yes.
in the Black community. And I shopped around for teacups, and each client of mine got their own teacup. It would be the same cup that I'd put out for them every session. They could have tea if they wanted to. Most of them did, even if they were coffee drinkers. And I'd be sipping my tea and we'd share this together. And it would be like, yes, it's therapy, but it'd also be like a chat, and there was a certain feel and aesthetic I was going for. And I actually had a home office, to start, which was a really vulnerable endeavor. But because I started my practice with very little capital, um, which is
Mm-hmm.
not the only way, but it was just at the time what worked for me to do it. Um, that's how I started. So yeah, there's definitely like an indoctrination, uh,
Mm-hmm.
as you called it. I think that's a good way to put it. And of course, telehealth wasn't really a part of the vision when we went to school either. So
No.
this was the only way to do it as far as where we were concerned. Um, yeah. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But there was something else you said too, because like when you were wrestling with the things that you mentioned, um, I think I had said to you, like, I think this decision is already like a no brainer, right?
Yeah.
And when you told me how much money you would save, and what was your response to that?
To how much money? Can I pull up the texts?
Well, you
I
can, but
can't
like
remember.
you were sort of doing the most even after you agreed.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
I still felt like I needed like data to back up the choice.
Mhm.
Like I needed to see the hard numbers, even though without looking at the hard numbers, it really like again, where I'm at now, it really seems like a no-brainer, but like I still feel like I need to justify it in my head for sure that
Mhm.
this is the right thing to do. But I wanted to go back just a little bit just to add to the indoctrination piece. The irony of this indoctrination is that my first client ever as a student was in May 2020, which y'all might remember contextually what was going around May 2020. So I actually did not see a client in person until almost a year into my practicum experience. So I started as a telehealth practice therapist. I got thrown into the deep end with telehealth, and that's how I started. And so it is a little bit ironic that I'm having these mixed feelings considering where I came from. But anyway, to go back to what you were saying, I still feel the need to have all the data to back up the decision, which a decision which in my heart I know is what I want to do and what is next for my business period, whether I move out of the country this year or next year.
And what where is the need for data coming from?
White supremacy and capitalism. Um,
I
if
mean,
we're speaking broadly, if we're speaking more
specifically.
specifically, I think that making decisions, I have this internalized belief that I need to justify with hard data and hard numbers a choice that I know to be best for me financially and best for me personally, even for my own health, right? And I think about if I were telehealth, I could stack my clients in a different way and go to any Pilates class that I want during the week, right? And so it's like, in order to do the thing that is best for me holistically, I need to have numbers to back it up.
I am, though, wondering about the indoctrination part and what
Mm-hmm.
role it plays in that.
Yeah, feeling well, there's some people, even, the other day I'm not on social media, which means I sometimes idly scroll LinkedIn, which is deeply embarrassing. And I can't believe I'm admitting it. And I did see I, I hid some stuff on LinkedIn, which means LinkedIn has no idea what I actually want to see. So I get a bunch of random suggested posts. And I got a random guy from a random one from some random white guy. I don't remember what was said or who he is, but the context was something like judging telehealth. I don't remember, but there is a judgment. There are some therapists or some people, some mental health practitioners who refuse to believe in the power of telehealth. Maybe a lot of them were Gen X and boomers, right? That aren't as comfortable with the technology. But what I see, and my personal belief is, I don't actually believe one is better than the other. I just genuinely think it's about what's best for the client. And I have clients where maybe driving to my office, sitting for an hour and driving home takes up way too much time of their day. Or there's only so many hours after 5 o'clock that I can actually practice, right? And so that means if you work a 9 to 5 or a non-traditional schedule, it's not going to line up, but you can fit an hour in your day of telehealth that works. Or maybe, you have a disability and getting to the office is just not going to happen. Like, I have a client with chronic pain. Her getting to an office is out of the question. We only do telehealth. So I think a lot of the indoctrination is just from the gatekeepers of our field who seem to think that the old school way is the best way and that is in person. And it's simply not true.
Yeah, and I think that there are parts of that that's true and parts of it that are not, right? Which is that, like, there is something to be said for training in person with folks.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that you learn to see and pick up on. Like, I'm very much I'm watching bodies,
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
person, and, I wonder sometimes if I'm good at that even on telehealth because of what I've had to do, and, like, even though there's like psychological testing, some psychological testing can be done through telehealth, some of it can't be, right? And so there are pros and cons depending on what you're doing to being in person or being via telehealth. Like I still like sublet and like a not like when I need an office space for when I have to do testing. Um and yeah, so I think it's a little bit nuanced. And also there is definitely a sense of like this is better and it can't be done any differently, and even when the research is showing that that's not true, people still ignore that data.
Mm-hmm.
And what
Mm-hmm.
you were saying about accessing um, a physical office space made me think about how, with my chronic illness, sometimes going into the office to see my therapist is like a very nerve-wracking endeavor because you never knew who was there before. You don't know what precautions they're
Right.
taking. They could have gotten my therapist sick, and he might not have even known yet. And there were times when that did happen. And even though I really actually did like seeing him in person, I was like, actually, like, can we go to video? Go back to video after COVID, um, because I was just like, the risks are too great for me
Right.
come see you in the office. And other people who thought that they wouldn't like it realized, just like you said, that not having to drive actually allowed them to fit it into their day without missing too much of work and all of these different things. And so telehealth
Yeah.
certainly counters ableism in a lot of ways. And there are some ways where it doesn't. And I
Right.
think everything has nuance as the bottom line.
Agreed.
But I don't want to lose the thread of like why we're having this conversation, which is that what I was saying to you when we were texting is I was like, I'm coaching you because I'm doing business coaching with therapists. And I was really sort of wondering what was actually going on in your head behind seeing the number, but still feeling like it wasn't enough information.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about the line, which really what you're talking about too with the indoctrination is like, we are never taught to think like business people. That is not
Mm-mm.
what we went to school for. That's not what we got in the business for, right?
Yep.
But then we end up with our own practices for various reasons. And if you're new to the show, um, for me, it was after getting fired from a group practice and feeling like I never wanted anyone to have that much control over my life ever again. And, I had kind of pressed on you to start your practice as well because I just thought it would be more financially lucrative for you to have your own business and that it could flex to your schedule. Um, and I think that, like, over the years, because I've been now a business owner for 6 years, as of February 2025, you learn that there are some decisions that are not only best for your business, but also best for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we have been taught to sacrifice everything in the service of clients to the point that people who like our lay folks who might be consumers of mental health get mad at therapists on social media who talk about why they don't take insurance or who talk about why their rates are what they are, and they call them selfish and all of these different things, not realizing that we get totally robbed when we take insurance, and
Yeah.
that the fight to get a better rate is exactly that. It's a fight. And they don't make it easy to find out who you need to reach out to. They don't make it easy to negotiate, even when you have specialty skills. And a lot of therapists go years and years not petitioning for a rate increase because they don't even know that they can. And then,
Mm-hmm.
like, having to balance the aspects of your business, like hunting down denied claims, which you don't get paid for. When the insurance company doesn't pay you your money, they don't pay you to find out why you didn't get paid.
Right. And we can't ask the client, like, hey, I did this many hours of admin work. So here's a bill for me having to hunt down your insurance. That would be ridiculous.
Right, exactly. Because when you're using insurance, those are not services that people pay for. So, when folks get mad, I'm like, you guys have no idea. You have no
Yeah.
idea, and legally, we're not allowed to talk about the rates that we receive if we're signed with a panel, right?
Yeah.
And so I always use an arbitrary number for this, where I'm like, okay, like if my rate is $300 an hour, in order for me to make a living without dying in the process,
Mm-hmm.
insurance company may give me like 110, making up some numbers there. But like, think about that. You set a certain rate because you know you need it to make a living without seeing 40 people a week, which is insane.
Mm-hmm.
My therapist was doing that.
Wow.
Yeah. Like you'd be seeing like 10 people in a day. And when I
I
tell
can't
you,
do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
like our job is actually quite physically demanding as well as psychologically demanding. And people don't believe that because we're just, quote, sitting there. I'm like, no, you have no freaking idea how exhausting that is. And so when I say something like, Blanca, it's a no brainer, it's coming from that place of being like, it's not worth it because you wouldn't be here as a therapist. You'd be like, I'm done. Like the people who burnt out and quit and closed their businesses because you didn't make business decisions.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. While you were talking, another part of it too that makes it, I think, a little bit hard. And I'm not saying this is it's not a big part of it, but it's a small part of it. It's just kind of, it's a measure of success in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the indoctrination, right? And so the other part of it too is like, I think, I'm a first generation I'm a first generation Mexican American. I'm first generation business owner. Um, and it is kind of, I know it's cool for my parents to say, oh, yeah, esta oficina aquí es la de Blanquita. This is Blanquita's office, right? Like, it's a measure of success to have an office that you built yourself that people can come to. It's kind of like how excited my parents were that I own my home. I don't own it. I'm still paying it, but you know what I mean? Like, it's her house, it's her office, there's a measure of pride and success there that I think it's a teeny little hurdle I had to jump over, that closing my office doesn't mean I'm not successful.
Mm-hmm.
It just
Yeah.
means it's time.
And that definition of success, right, was something that is very much a part of the, quote, American dream, right?
Yes.
Which I have been telling people forever has always been a setup. And like, as I realized, like, and it ties you down, right? Like, it ties you down
It does.
because you're considering this not only because it might be financially viable, but it allows you to move in a freer way to take care of yourself and your life, which then allows you to be able to continue to show up for the people that you serve.
Yes, because I am a Sagittarius sun and rising, and it's in my chart and a bunch of other places, and my butt has been still since COVID started. And that just doesn't fill my little Sagittarius heart. I got to be traveling. I got to be moving. I got to be doing things.
Mm-hmm.
Can't do that with a brick and mortar office.
Yeah. I mean, you could, but you'd have to, like,
Then
be.
I'm paying rent for time I'm not in an
No,
office. So yeah,
absolutely. I'm just saying, right? Because,
yeah,
like, people do it. And I don't want to give the message that we're saying that this is the only way to be free.
no,
Um, it's just that for what you want,
yeah.
this is the way, right?
Yeah, when I was in Jamaica, I was on an excursion and I met two other therapists on my small group excursion,
Mhm.
two other therapists One of them was a woman about my age, also a woman of color. And she was like, yeah, girl, I just spent a month in some other tropical area. Now she's spending 2 weeks in Jamaica, and she sees clients from her all inclusive hotel room during the morning and then goes off and spends her time like living and exploring in all these different areas. And I'm just like, what? My own therapist does the same thing. I don't know what her setup is because obviously that wouldn't be appropriate. But after the onset of COVID, she never went back to in person. And she has shared that she's just moving about the world.
Mhm.
I mean, Jesus Christ, like the thought of that, frankly, it fills me with joy. Like my body immediately responds to it. I feel like I can take a deeper breath. I feel like excited. I feel happiness, joy, all the things. Just at the thought of like I could go spend a week in Jamaica, see clients 2 or 3 of those days, and then just vibe. That sounds amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like, sitting in a windowless room all day, because listen, when I was at the group practice, I didn't have a window in my office. It's a really miserable thing. Like you literally see like
It
eight
really is.
people and you never see the sunset. Like it's not. It's like it's almost as if you're like well, it's not the same thing, but
No.
I don't even want to say it, but it does feel like a trap, like and and I don't want to like I'm not saying that it's miserable to see people, right? It's just miserable to never see the light of day
Yeah,
all day
exactly.
every day just to make ends meet.
Yeah.
That's really what we're talking about, right? And so what have been some of like the biggest shifts that you've had to make in your mind between the clinical role and your business owner role? And what maybe do you feel like you're still learning?
The biggest shifts in my head in order to think. Say that one more time.
Yeah, in order to think in business owner role rather than clinical role, what has had to happen or what do you feel like you're still working
I
through?
have to really manage that people pleasing part.
Mm,
The part that wants to say, but no, so and so loves coming in person, or no, so and so is going to have to find another therapist. So and it's never easy as that. Our journeys with our clients as mental health practitioners, they're going to come to an end eventually. Most of the time, the client makes that decision. When you have to be the one to make that decision, it's hard. It's hard whether it is that your journey with that person has come to an end for one reason or another, or what happens most of the time, which is that as we continue to grow as mental health practitioners, so will our expertise, so will our niche. And then that means that maybe me, who I am as a therapist in a year, isn't the right fit for everyone who I'm the right fit for right now. And that was something my own therapist told me. She said that as you continue to grow, so will your niche, and so will your business. And that sometimes means that your target audience changes. And I think what's happening for me naturally is I'm getting more and more clients who want to do telehealth or are very flexible with it and can switch or want to switch depending on what their day is looking like. And so that for me is a sign that I need to shift my business too.
mhm.
But yeah, letting go of the people pleasing part, I think, is been probably the biggest part.
I think what's really important about what you said with that is that our training reinforces the people pleasing. Because I wouldn't say it's just difficult to make the decision. I feel like it feels almost impossible.
Mhm.
And that's not true, right? That's something that my brain was telling me. But at the time, that I had to make a difficult decision with my practice, which was last year. It felt impossible. And it was a decision, as you know, because I had been talking to you for years, like 2 years to decide to execute something that I pretty much in my heart already knew.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the reason why I started the coaching, because I mean there's a myriad of reasons, but like I'm like, yes, people could figure this out on their own. But the amount of work it takes to unlearn shit that we were taught, like nobody has that kind of time. And I want people to have time, right? I want people to have their time back and help them move through those decisions in a faster way. Because I thought I was the most terrible person for thinking I need to cut out like half my caseload, more than half. I was like, I got to scale way back. And that decision was coming from significant health issues, which I've talked about on previous episodes. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I physically can't keep this up. This job is really demanding in a very specific way. And on top of like having to constantly reschedule or cancel last minute and all these things because of being sick or having to go to the hospital or needing surgery, um, I was still pushing through because in the back of my head, I'm like, what are they going to do?
Right.
Like these people have been seeing me for X number of years. What are they going to do? If I end with them, what's going to happen? And I think that that was reinforced by the fact that even though some people were actually on their way out of treatment just before COVID started, they clung on to me for dear life.
Right.
Suddenly, people who were at every other week were back to weekly, or if they were monthly, they were back to every other week, and they weren't going anywhere. And I had a client in and out of the hospital
Mm.
during that time, and that was really hard. Sometimes I'd be away, I'd finally have gotten to take a vacation, and I get a crisis call, and it's just me because that's my business, and yes, I had backup, but I'm also like, it's hard to have a backup manage a case that they know nothing about for a crisis, right? Where the decision is hospitalization, and so I was like, "I physically can't do this." And it took a lot of things happening to me to finally arrive at that decision, and people were angry. Um, people, I mean, they were understanding, but they were also angry because I had been very transparent with my clients about my health issues because I had to say to them, like, this will create interruptions to our schedule that I won't be able
Mm.
to predict. They had the right to know that. But yeah, I mean, people were not happy about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a relationship. I always say to my own therapist, like, this is probably the most like fucked up thing that you could we could be doing for like a job. Like people are paying for a relationship that's supposed to be healing, right? We are trusted with a really huge task. So of course they have feelings about us and what we do. And we have feelings about them, right? And so like I genuinely care for my clients deeply. And so that makes the decision even harder to make. And so there's something like there's a also the nature of the profession and the nature of the relationship that makes these decisions like really, really hard.
Yeah, but there, I mean, it is a relationship, and I always tell new clients like one of the most important things that will help create change is the relationship you and I have, and
Mhm.
what that looks like and feels like for you. So yeah, so part of it is like you know, I think my moment of joy and thriving last week that I was able to set a boundary around a relationship, and that was really hard. And this is not that different. The context might be different, but the process is the same, which is I need to do something in order to take care of myself, to continue to take care of you. And that might mean that you lose out on part of it, which is sitting in my pretty orange office with my plants and and
Mhm.
diffuser. But yeah, it's definitely its own thing.
I do want to, and we might not spend too much time on this, mostly because it's the business thinking that we're trying to talk about here. But I do want to spotlight this because it's true for both of us. So both of us have expertise in working with folks who have been in intimate partner violence relationships, and safety is always one of the challenges there. And I would say for me, like, that was one of the harder parts of the decision to making my practice telehealth. And I know it's probably on
Yeah,
your mind too. And so I was
it
wondering if
is.
you could talk about that as well. Because our,
Yeah,
like, yes, it may be a business decision, but there are like real impacts and considerations.
right. Like, what clients could I potentially lose out on that I could do great work with that can't if I'm only telehealth, because that means I'll be doing sessions in the place where they're experiencing abuse with their abuser on the other side of the door. Yeah, I don't have any deep thoughts or anything really to wax poetically about with that one, other than there's some grief involved in losing that potential client. But if you think about it, right, like I lose potential clients every day because I'm located on these cross streets and not across town, right? So God, I kind of, I want to have more to say about it, but I don't think I do, other than that part is hard. I don't know. What was in your head about this?
Well, I was just reminded of how you talked about like thinking about the other options that you had, like even if you got rid of your office, if you still wanted to
Mm,
be able to service those clients, you could like sublet from somebody, or like just pay a fee for the hour. And certainly, as I mentioned, like I pay only when I need an office space. And so those are options that I leave available for me to be able to provide, at least for me, psychological testing, which is important in my business. But um, there are options and ways to think about it, but certainly, like, if you're the roaming therapist, that's going to be harder to do, right? It's going to be
yeah,
harder to do.
it is. It is going to be harder to do. And I can't pay money and then not live the life I want because of a potential, right? And it's not like we live in a world where there's one therapist for every one client, right? Like it's not a one-to-one thing where it's this massive competition. There are not enough therapists to cover the need. And so if me going telehealth means I am not for that client, that's okay because someone else will be. Right, which I think that's part of the indoctrination too, that you
Mm-hmm.
have to take every client that calls, or you have to take every client that's really aligned with you, or you have to take every client that's your niche. No, you don't. You
Well,
don't.
what's really funny though is not everybody talks about alignment.
So I do. We do all the
No,
time.
we
So
talk about alignment,
yeah.
right? But when I like know what they talked about niches, clinical niches, right?
Mm-hmm.
Alignment
Mm-hmm.
came later. Alignment came much later in my business. And that's why I deal with alignment early in my coaching program, because alignment is absolutely a part of running a business.
Yes. Yeah. I'm having a trauma response.
God, Lucas.
Because I'm having a flashback because I'm remembering you're right. You're right. Like we're just told. I remember. I don't remember which class or which professor or which abuser did this to me, but I remember speaking up in class and saying, "You're telling me that if someone genuinely is violently racist towards me, I have to just swallow that, take it, and be that person's therapist." And I was told basically yes. And so, yeah, it's all coming back. You're totally right. There is no conversation about alignment whatsoever. And again, with the indoctrination, is you have to take everyone. If they want to see you, you have to take them. And that is simply not true. It might be true, just to for space for nuance. If you are in your practicum, if you are getting your licensure, maybe that might be true, maybe on your context. But most of my clients, even through internship, have been highly aligned.
Yeah, I would challenge the licensure part 100% because there was a lot of things I was told when I was pre-licensed that were just not true. Uh, that's a whole nother episode. But like, I think that you know, it reminds me of a conversation I had with my therapist. I keep saying my therapist, but he was my last therapist. I'm out at the moment after 7 years. Um, but I remember saying to him, and he dealt with a lot of stuff for me, but I was like, you can't be a generalist. I'm like, you literally cannot. And maybe somebody will say, well, that's a lie you're telling somebody. And I'm like, no, I actually think being a generalist is irresponsible, because it means that you're not drilling down enough in the area, in certain areas, in order to actually be able to give people the care that they deserve. Right. And so, and that's not just about niche, that's also about alignment. And I appreciate your example because, like, for a while I used to work with families in my practice. I only do it through my forensic work. And I took a case that, like, somewhere in my gut, and this is early in my business, so
Mm-hmm.
before COVID, and I saw them through COVID early in my business, and it was referred to me from a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I've been nervous as hell to talk about this case because, like, how it ended is, like, the parent threatened to, like, report me because I set a boundary around how I refused to be talked to in my sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was being yelled at, disrespected to the point that, like, another family member had to, like, you know, say something about it. And I remember being like, no, like, I will not tolerate this.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to say something about it. And, like, the amount of abuse, like, we're told, like, well, they're like, you're never really taught how to manage that. And so then the message is exactly what you said,
Mm-hmm.
which is, do not, you don't do anything, you just take it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I learned in my unlearning is that the most valuable thing that you could do is address it.
Right.
And whether or not that person, how they deal with that, that's a whole nother story. But even beyond that, I've learned that moving in a way that draws alignment, generally speaking, keeps that from being a thing in the first place. So people know who you are and what you stand for, and they're not for it unless their goal is to just, show up in your office because they want to be violent. Because I wouldn't put it past some people. um, Most of the time, it's not an issue
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
when you're moving in a
Yeah.
line.
Yeah. And yeah, I think I spoke a little bit about this in our self-care episode, but yeah, the times it's hardest to take care of myself is when there's something is off in alignment
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
with our work.
And I don't think that this is just specific to mental health practitioners, right?
No.
Like, anybody running a business has their person,
Right.
and that's your person, and that's who
Yeah.
you're looking for, and there's nothing wrong with that because that allows us to give the best service
Right.
to our person.
Yeah.
Um, so it's true for the mechanic, it's true for the accountant, right? Like, if you really value service, you know that you have specific people,
Yeah. You know
period.
what a really good example of this is? And I just think about it because I just think about like how badly we need this business in my town, especially once I became a homeowner. But I somewhere in the Pacific Northwest, I don't know where, but there's some business called Rent a Butch where you can have it's handy work, and it's only women providers. And I think about this all the time because when I first became a homeowner, I was having repair people in all the time, and they were always men.
Oh,
And I didn't always have another man or human to come be in the house with me while this work happened. And the number of times I wish, man, why aren't there any like handy women? Like, where can I get those? Anyway, totally random aside, but this is exactly what you're talking about. Like, there's how many businesses are there for handy people? A ton. But like this one business, I bet you they do fucking good
yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's a
I would much
niche.
prefer it. The amount of times that people have like been there to like fix my oven but have hit on me or been like, you'll be a good housewife just because I offered them a glass of water. And I'm just like, fix the freaking oven, dude, and get out of my apartment. Like you're creepy. But anyway, that was a little bit of an aside, but I wanted to sort of talk about how do you balance seeing clients and managing the business, right? Because there's working in your business and working on your business. So, what do you do to balance that?
I have my Monday admin time, which happens before this podcast is recorded. This is when I'm catching up on notes. This is when I'm responding to advertising inquiry, or new client inquiries. This is when I'm doing bookkeeping. This is when I'm responding to my biller. So I just have a separate time for it, because otherwise I will be sitting in session thinking, when am I going to have time to do this? Now it's set aside for Monday mornings after coffee.
And how do you balance that from a financial perspective? And my admin time is also Monday morning, unless I'm testing.
How do I do what?
Balance it financially, right? Because people are always scared, like, well, I can't set aside time to work on my business because that's time I'm losing money.
For those that are listening and not watching, I'm shocked. My face is that of shock. I
What are
don't
you
know.
shocked
I
about?
never thought about it that way. Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? It's like part of. What do you mean? I've literally. I guess I guess for my, that maybe speaks to a little bit of like privilege that I have it built into my head to the point that I never even thought about that. Like, I guess I never thought to myself, I better get paid for email sending. I don't know. God, Cassara, I don't know.
This is why I do the coaching. No, I mean the reason I asked this question is because like most clinicians are so booked, right, that they fall behind on notes because there's no time to do them, right? Because there are choices that are being made between, well, do I go to the bathroom or do I eat a snack or do I do my note and then lose the 15 minutes that I have and then next thing you know I'm behind on notes and then right, like they don't even structure it into their time.
Yeah, I structure it into my time.
Yeah. And the reason why I bring this up, because this is the business, right? This is the business. Time to work on your business and time to work in your business. Because guess what? Those clinical notes, they get done at some point anyway. You're going to have to do them.
Yeah.
So you might as well set aside the time for them without it having to be begrudging extra time. So that I think it's Therapy Notes, their Instagram is making a killing off of just memes about therapists being behind on their notes, right? But other things behind the scenes, right? Negotiating your rate, right? Early in your business with the insurance company, right? Making sure that you're getting what you could be getting
Yeah.
potentially. Like there are all these little things because if you don't feel like you have to like see 40 clients just to make ends meet, it's easier to structure in that time, but you're going to have to do it anyway, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why that has never been a problem for me. I just,
I promise you, you're probably like, I don't know. I don't know the statistics, but you're probably an outlier because many of the clinicians I talk to have not set aside this time.
and I hope my shock doesn't make anyone feel shamed. I can see how that can happen. I maybe it was because you had already had a practice for so long. I did become a therapist in my mid 30s, but I actually have a lot of friends who are therapists, and so it might have just been a quiet lesson learned that I had in my head, watching you become a therapist, a mental health practitioner, watching other friends become mental health practitioners. I think it might have just been something I took note of early on and structured it into my time. The other part of it that might be feeding into this, as I mentioned in our self-care episode, is my number one motivator is time to do nothing.
Mhm.
So I will do whatever I have to do to get that the working on the business stuff done, so that when I'm done with clients at 7 p.m. on a Wednesday, I can then go on my hot girl walks with my best friend, or I can like cook dinner or just watch TV or whatever it is that's on the menu for that day without any interruption. So I think it just, as an maybe the outlier there is that I just happen to experience motivation through time to do nothing.
Yeah, no, same. I mean, again, certainly it was a learning curve, but like my motivation is time to play my video game, time to read. Like, I need to be like, I am not cooking dinner and thinking that I haven't done this note. I'm cooking dinner and I'm listening to my spicy audiobook.
Right.
When
Yeah.
I'm ready to sit down and watch my C drama, I can do that, right? And that's not to say that there are times in my business where I do fall behind sometimes. Like that
Sure.
happens. Like that's just, natural ebb and flow, but the systems are in place to make sure that that's not something that I'm constantly chasing. Um I do want to sort of close-ish, maybe like two more questions, but talking about marketing
Mm-hmm.
and self-promotion. So tell me about your relationship with that. And
Well,
have
mhm.
you had to do it for your business?
Yes, but not yes and no. So yes, I'm on all the therapy sites, inclusive therapist, Latinx therapy, and unfortunately, I am on Psychology Today. That is a big one in the area I'm in, so that is the option I have. Um, but I don't promote myself, for example, like on social media, um, due to where my website lives right now, which I am working to change, but due to where it lives right now, I have no control over SEO type things. So I have not done that. So the vast majority of my advertising happens on therapist search engines. And so I don't use social media for self promotion. As I mentioned, I think early on in our podcast journey, is
Mhm.
I have trauma. And so it brings me a lot of anxiety to think about putting myself out there as a therapist on social media, though I do have a social media page for my practice. So I don't engage in it in a lot in that way. But I do think one thing that supported my success is that my profiles make it very clear who I am politically. And I think that is one thing we're told not to do. We're
Mhm.
told not to be too specific because you don't want people to weed themselves out. And I think maybe it can be true for some people. It can be true in some ways. Like I think you were mentioning you have a wait list because then people weed themselves out. That was you, right? That I had that conversation with. Yeah. Um, so I think in terms of advertising, it has felt good for me to be that direct in my profiles and put myself out there as I am. And I think it has paid off in terms of getting me clients in alignment, but then getting clients, period. So I'm very comfortable when it's static, like those profiles, not as comfortable when it comes to like my website or social media.
Yeah, and I can't remember if I talked about it in previous episodes, but I only had Psychology Today for the first 6 months of my business and didn't need it after that. Created my own website, did my SEO, made sure my messaging was clear. I talk a lot about messaging with clinicians. Um, like it's not as, I mean, it can be simple, but it also isn't in some ways. um, and even though I'm a member of Inclusive Therapists, I'm not listed. Most,
Mm.
I'd say, like most of my clients find me through my website. Sometimes I'll get like inquiries from insurance, uh,
Mm.
but those don't convert really. I can't tell you how many times I've responded to those messages in the past when I was actively taking therapy clients and I never heard anything. So 100% of my referrals over the years post being listed with a directory was from my website. And the reason why I started social media, and I talked about this, I think, earlier episodes, is not to get clients. Like, that's not a place where people are like, hey, I need therapy from you. Like, I started it purely like as an educational endeavor because I was seeing other clinicians posting things that were not accurate on social media. And I was like, well, I could complain, or I can become a part of the accurate voices here, because I was like, people deserve accurate information, especially if they can't access mental health services. Like, they're
Mhm.
consuming a lot of it online.
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean that I haven't had like my own anxieties about being present. And we can do a whole episode on that. But yeah, the directory thing made me think about this, that if you are on our Patreon, uh, I forget which level. I apologize, but you can get an audit from us of your listings if you would like. And I do a whole media audit with folks as part of my coaching program. So we've become really good at doing this, and sort of recognizing what people are looking for, and really helping folks get over that. I can't list myself a certain way because I'm worried I won't get X person, and I'm like, maybe they're not your person.
Yeah. Right. Right. Then
And
they're
we're
just not
never
your
told that.
person.
We're told we need all the people, and like, no, we just need the people, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um Do you feel like you have acquired any specific financial skills in order to like manage your business? Do you feel like that was something you needed to do, or how did you manage it?
I don't have anything. I'm going off vibes. I don't. Yeah. I'm just gonna be honest, right? Like,
Well, that's not true. You use QuickBooks.
I do. Well, I don't use QuickBooks, but I do have a bookkeeping. So I use Zero.
Zero. Okay.
Because there was a lot of tears when trying to figure out QuickBooks online. It was great for when I was a sole proprietor. Not so great once you have an LLC. It's definitely not for beginners. So Zero is much easier. But yeah, I mean, I had to learn bookkeeping, really. That's what I had to learn, which I guess it is easier than maybe if I had been doing it 40 years ago, thanks to like apps and stuff. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, I had to learn how to do bookkeeping, and that was not fun or easy. I paid for a course. I ended up not using it. I just dumped QuickBooks online and switched to a whole different um, provider because I just could not figure it out.
Yeah, and mine was different. So I did everything for myself and used QuickBooks my first year of business. And after I sat down and like it took me like 8 hours to do my taxes, I was like, I'm hiring somebody. And that is what I have done. And that doesn't mean that you turn a blind eye to your stuff, because Like, I catch things and I'm like, this is not like, so you do need to make sure you're looking closely at your money and you understand like your accounting, like, but you do not have to learn all of those things, right? Like, you can choose to hire someone to manage it. And that was just an expense that I built into my business because I was like, my time is what I need. And I don't want to spend a bunch of time dealing with this stuff for which there are literally entire professions, right? Like CPAs are a thing for a reason.
Right, right.
So if you're killing yourself over something that you really don't have to do and like you could afford to put aside money for that, I would recommend doing it.
There are some problems that if you have the ability to, it is just better to throw money at.
Yes, yes. And we could probably do like an entire another episode because there's so much more to talk about, or maybe we'll do it on our Patreon, but like passive income streams, like even just like speaking engagements and all of those different things.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe consulting for other folks. I know you've done some stuff. So like there's a lot more we can talk about. Maybe it'll be on the Patreon. Maybe it'll be on a main episode feed. Anything else you
TB.
want to say about this before we close out the topic?
Um, I guess spoiler alert, I am gonna go fully telehealth.
Yes.
Probably by July. It is March 3rd.
Yes, you've picked a date. I'm going to hold you to it because this is on the recording, Blanca.
So we'll see. Maybe
Well,
this episode might be out by then and I'll be a liar or a truth teller. We'll see.
I think you'll be a truth teller. Yeah, definitely. This episode might come out maybe by then or so. Um, I really enjoyed talking about this with you.
Yay.
Moving into our moment of breathing and
Yeah,
joy.
do you wanna lead us today?
Yeah, sure, I can lead us. So, as usual, when we talk about all the things, we want to take a moment to practice what we preach and take a deep breath. Or, as I always say, you can place your hand on your heart and track your heartbeat if breathing is uncomfortable for you. So, take a deep breath in through your nose, hold, and exhale. We're going to do one more time. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. And you can always change the breathing numbers to whatever feels comfortable for you. So, we are in our moments of joy. Blanca, what is bringing you joy this week or thriving?
God, I think I have to admit, like saying it out loud, I'm gonna go fully telehealth by mid-July. That I think if I'm noticing what's happening in my body and even my brain, yeah, I'm ready for that flexibility. I'm ready for that. That being next. So I think my moment of joy and thriving this week is making that decision for myself.
Yes, and I am excited for you to
Thank you.
make that decision.
Yeah.
For me this week, it's that even though a presentation that I was supposed to do today got canceled, well, it's rescheduled to April. It's probably like scaling to be some of the bigger presentations I've been doing of my career. And
Yay.
I got another email today from another big, testing place asking me to do a presentation literally surrounding the topic of like ableism and oppression. And I'm like, are y'all sure you want this? Because I will give it to you. So I feel like sort of like a nervous excitement about like, wasn't expecting any of these things at this point in my career. So I'm
Yeah.
super excited about it.
Yay. We're snapping our fingers if you're not listening, if you're not watching.
Yes, so we look forward to talking with you next time. We hope that you'll join us for our next episode. Until then,
Bye.
bye. Thank you for joining us on our journey. You can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Please leave us a review and subscribe. You can email us at calltohealingpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on YouTube and Instagram at Call to Healing. Sign up for our mailing list, book us for speaking engagements and consulting, or donate to support this endeavor at our one-time donation link in the show notes. You can find even more goodness from us on Patreon at patreon.com/calltohealing. Keep in mind our views are our own and do not represent any organization we may be a part of. Even though we're both clinicians, listening to this podcast does not constitute a therapeutic relationship or clinical contract. If you hear anything that resonates with you in crisis, please seek the help of a trusted provider or the resources provided on our social media page. And remember, you're made for more than just healing. You're made to thrive. Until next time, rest easy.